Okay, good afternoon. My name is Guan. I am a facilitator, a coach, and a consultant. And with a stroke of good fortune recently, I also work with an incredibly talented team at Gamify Academy. And today I will be the moderator. So welcome to yet another installment of the Gamification Expert Series hosted by Gamify. If you're new to us, here is where we have a conversation with members of the community on all things gamification, particularly issues pertaining to the business application and equally important, its impact on people. Today, we're doing things a little differently. Our usual format has been a one-on-one interview and transcribed into text. So this time around, we're introducing a video version on top of the transcription. And we also have with us a panel of remarkable and, dare I say, young entrepreneurs and innovators. So let's start with Ms. Lovelynne Chong, founder of Fireflies and advocate for bridging innovation and marketing data. Lovelynne has spearheaded campaigns such as the Singapore Tourism Board's Kampung Glam United and People's Gallery for the National Gallery that have garnered her multiple awards, including the 2022's STB's Outstanding Marketing Idea Award. So welcome, Lovelynne.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Next up, we have Mr. Jaxton Cheah. Jaxton is a gamification advocate in Malaysia. He works with many reputable gamification experts in the United States and Europe to promote game thinking and gamification in the Southeast Asian region. He was recruited by Amy Jo Kim, the founder of Game Thinking Academy, to be certified game thinking coach. And he has been a valuable partner of Gamify over the years as well. So great to have you on board, Jaxton.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Okay,
Thanks, Ryan.
Not a problem. Lovely to have all of you here despite your busy schedule. So let's get started. Okay, today we're going to talk about engagement, advocacy, and outreach in an age of digital saturation. So it used to be a case where our inbox got flooded constantly with advertisements, messages, and to be honest, stuff that we will never open. So whenever there is a new channel or media, oversaturation happens. And with the technological capacity that we see today, it's happening at a more rapid pace. Particularly as well during the COVID-19 environment, we all experience digital fatigue. You have limited attention span, a finite number of consumers and hours in a day, but content remains a variable in that it constantly increases in output, intensity, and variety. Yet, traffic isn't going to increase because internet penetration is already at the level of saturation. So my question is, what do we do now? We are privileged to have with us today this diverse panel of distinguished guests with an equally diverse set of skills. Perhaps I could start with you, Lovelynne. The introduction I gave seems a little bleak. What are your initial thoughts on this?
It's interesting because as you're saying that, I'm surrounded by screens, despite the background. So personally, when I saw this question, I feel that content saturation will be a continuous problem. But it's the quality of content and how it motivates its audience that needs to change. Does that make sense?
Perhaps I can just very quickly follow up. I mean, we keep hearing this thing about quality content, right? What do we actually mean by quality content? What constitutes quality content?
So personally, I divide quality content into three things. One, it's generated based on interest. The second is that it engages you at a level that you already expect it to. And the third thing is it gives you options of something that you are already looking for or are considering to acquire, or knowledge that you want to know, or somewhere along the lines of intense interest.
Thank you for that, Lovelynne. Jaxton, your take on this?
Okay, so maybe I will go on the first question first, which is actually my thought when it comes to like this digital saturation. So I believe that from pandemic to endemic right now, and then digital fatigue is actually it cannot be denied, right? So I think people are craving for a physical experience, right? And then of course they will have a higher expectations when it comes to digital experience as well, particularly at workplace, right? And being employees, right? So, but I'm optimistic because I see an opportunity, okay, especially for like gamifications or experience design projects. And the second question, I think, it comes to content, right? So I think like what Lovelynne said, where I think it's relatable, it's relevant to them, okay? So I think at workplace, so my context, what I shared would be actually more on the work that I do a lot, or my focus, I think, would be actually more on the workplace learning or projects that I do that within workplace. Yeah, so I think we talk about learning content that is actually relevant to them. Okay, and just in time that they want to learn something that is actually personalized to them as well. Yeah, so that is actually what I mean by content. And of course, definitely if we bite size, that it wouldn't be like a very lengthy, and that therefore I think that is actually the expectation of people looking at like what quality content would be. When it makes sense, to you, Glenn.
Yeah, so if we look at content, let us stick to content, right? So we definitely want to look at quality content. I think we have some definition or at least boundaries on what we understand by quality content. There's just so much content out there right now. How do we discern, what's quality and what's rubbish, that is flooding the marketplace at this point in time?
I think it's a demand and supply thing. Personally, I feel it's very personal. And what Jaxton said about physical, I agree and disagree a little bit, even though I'm in marketing. Mostly because I think COVID has accelerated our need to exist digitally, and also showed us that a lot of things that we thought we can only do physically, like grocery shopping, can now be replaced easily digitally. But I also do agree with Jaxton in the sense that the craving for knowledge has also heightened quite a bit during COVID. And as a result, people are realizing that, oh, I need to know more. And that's where you come up with, we have issues like fake news. So when it comes to quality content, I really feel it's very individual. It's very personalized. The different age demographics and age group has different definitions of quality content. So because of what I do, I prefer to build quality content according to segment, the different customer segments. And again, to me, it's really about how brands, businesses, services can motivate their audience into, looking at their content, interacting with their content. Yeah.
Right. No, that's interesting. What happens if a client comes to you? I mean, for both of you, right? And whether it's in the learning realm or the marketing realm, when a customer comes to you and says, I want to reach across the board, across generations, across demographics. So that's their universe in terms of their target audience. So what would be your advice to them then?
Personally, for me, my advice would be, then you need to focus on the reach before you can focus on the quality. Yeah.
Yeah, then to me, I think it's actually more than just looking at the content, right? So I think we look at actually the delivery methods. And
Okay.
I could have example like we provide bespoke content development services for client. We also actually provide off-the-shelf content, which is actually they can just acquire. It could be like LinkedIn learning. There's a lot of content, a lot, right? But I think the challenge is always not just the content, but it's actually the strategy. So we came out the golden triangle for workplace learning, which is actually helping L&Ds to drive sustainable workplace learning, right? So the golden triangle actually consists of content, of course, and then it consists of delivery as well. It could be a technology platform like LMS. It could be also actually a virtual instructor-led or instructor-led training. And the key is actually the learning strategy, which is actually what it takes to motivate the people, which is actually to adopt the course, the learning content, as well as to complete the content as well. So gamification in this case actually play a very important role, just looking at actually behavioral change and how we actually could motivate people, and in a longer journey, which is what we call sustainable. Yeah. So that's my take when I talk about the reach.
Sure. So, Lovelynne, your take on technology, since Jaxton brought up this whole thing on technology, what does what delivery methods and technological tools play in all this?
I love technology,
Yeah.
but I also feel that technology is drowning us with too many options. So I also agree that the strategy needs to be well defined, regardless whether it's online or offline. It's just empirical. That first we have to decide what the OKRs are before we look into how we can do it. And I think gamification is a very, very good way of really re-evaluating what we are focusing on.
Perhaps I could So Jaxton.
Yeah, so when it comes to technology, if I may add on, because I think when it comes to workplace, right? So looking at workplace technology, actually a lot of time I think we need to catch up compared to the consumer technology when it comes to deliver experience, because a lot of time workplace technology that their focus is enterprise technology, which is they focus on like stability, security, and so on. And a lot of time, their focus is not like delivering user experience. And of course, like Gamatize, I've been working with Gamatize team for a very long, been using the platform. You guys start with focusing on experience, and then eventually you guys become an enterprise grade kind of solutions. Okay, this is great. But a lot of time, when we actually work with clients that they don't have the right technology, and we need to introduce the technology. Yeah, and that's one.
Sure. Would it be fair to say then that at the workplace, it tends to be very functional in terms of the use of technology?
Yeah, I mean, of course, we because it's a lot of focus on the processes, right? So the managed process, you look at actually the HR, MS, HCM, even to a certain extent, which is actually not really catered for like the employees, but it's more on like HR. So what they do is actually like they gather data and they analyze, so it's a really process-driven kind of technology. So there are actually some of this employee-centric kind of technology as well, okay, which is actually would need to be introduced to some of these corporates. Yeah.
Right. Okay, maybe we can dive a little deeper into this whole user experience, right? Since we're on it right now. So understandably, gamification is one way to boost user experience. But why are so many companies still struggling to create an engaging user experience?
You want to go first?
Have I stumped you all?
Okay, this I think relates to the technology portion.
Okay.
I feel like in the application of technology differs between individuals and corporates. So I feel like one of the reasons why companies are struggling to create engaging user experience is because they don't really have very targeted KPIs or objectives they want to meet. And they themselves have not really thought about what technology or what kind of assets they need to really look into and achieve their KPIs. So it's a chicken or egg problem, right? When your KPIs are not well defined, you don't really have a good execution plan, and you're really just feeling in the dark. And when somebody says, oh, you should try this app, like Firefly's Note Taker, then you try and then you realize, hey, this doesn't work for me, right? But at the end of the day, it's also the constant evaluation process. And UI and UX is something that is built over a long period of time, not particularly very long, but it's not an instant process. It's really about empathizing with the end user versus what you want as the person building it. And that is really what I feel about UI UX. I get asked this question a lot, actually.
Okay. It seems like you brought up two issues in a way. One is obviously the ill-defined KPIs or objectives, and the other one seems to be perhaps even a lack of understanding of the capability of the technology itself.
I wouldn't say ill-defined.
Okay.
I would say rigid. So I give you an example, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people set KPIs. In the beginning, it looks attainable. But as time progresses, the KPIs sometimes are too inflexible and rigid to change according to, say, market changes. Like when COVID hit,
Right.
and it was an unknown, you won't be able to achieve that kind of numbers that you set out from the beginning of 2020. It's just not possible. There's not enough footfall on the streets, right?
Yep.
And I think companies took too long to react to that, so it became a very morbid situation. And by the time they adapted to the UI UX, the first movers that already, that were flexible enough to move, had already taken up a huge market share, like grocery shopping, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Jaxton, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I totally agree with Lovelynne when it comes to the KPI. So I think it's really about a clear expected outcome, that we actually need to predefine when we actually start the projects. And then of course, to define the metrics that what we are measuring as well towards the projects. Because I believe gamification is always like focusing on business objective, right? It's not just for fun or just to play a game.
Yeah.
But again, when I look at it, also actually the challenge that nowadays I think getting more tractions when it comes to gamifications. We receive a lot of calls, clients that, hey, I want gamification, I want those leaderboard, I want points, I want this rewards things, So to me, I think these are actually very it's a bit shallow. I mean, you look at it, I think it's important as well, but probably we will actually use it to onboard the employees at the beginning, of the new experience that you introduce to them. But in order for a long run, okay, then I think we need to figure it out something else that is actually more sustainable, right? So I think which is actually lacking of this, like have a long-term visions, because I think we all know when we run so many gamification projects, right? The leaderboards, the points, the badges, you can't actually just keep giving people points, badges. And we talk about reward budgets. Oh, we have a very limited reward budget, even though actually we help them to figure it out, some things that actually does not require even to pay the money, to use the money, to invest. But again, if people actually get bored from, time to time, like, if it's a long journey. So I think it's actually related to the design as well, for the gamification design, that is really important.
Right. I just want to follow up on the point you made just now about gamification is gaining traction, right? So you're getting a lot of calls and all that. What's driving that interest? Is this just people jumping on a bandwagon?
Okay. So I think it's always about technology adoptions. Okay, so example, clients, they want to reimagine employee onboarding journey induction. Okay, so they want to adopt technology, they want to engage their young generations, the new hire. Okay, so when they look at, okay, I want to digitalize this process. Okay, so how would I motivate people? And I heard gamification is good because we give points, you have leaderboards that, get people so excited and they will actually compete, and so on. Okay, so we want this. Okay, so learning, okay, so where people are introduced, to digital, virtual, and then all these things. So how can we actually engage them better? Okay, so we want to actually have this as well, like point badges and things like that. Yeah, so that is actually how I look at it. It's more on like technology adoptions that people, they want to change, and I think they think this is actually like a silver bullet. Okay, I can use this, which is to solve all the problems that I will have, or I will potentially have.
Right.
Yeah.
And what would be your approach with that client if they come to you thinking you can provide that silver bullet?
I think I will just I will nail down the scope, which is actually based on the expectations. Okay, and again, in terms of like the duration, because we know motivations, duration matters. If you were to motivate people for a year or compared to motivate people for a week, it's very different. And it goes to budget. and it goes to the right technology that we're able to do that, So I think that we are now very careful where we advise clients accordingly. And we also try to scope down as well as the clients, why don't you actually start this small projects? Okay, so we nail down and we scope it down, So we do like 1 week, 2 weeks kind of gamification campaign, and then you get tractions, you get data, you get a business case, and eventually you can approach your management for a bigger budget, to run a more significant projects. Yeah.
So from the point of view of engagement, how do we sustain engagement?
Okay, so then I'll go back to the workplace learning, right? So recently we're doing something which is actually, to me, I think this gamification, but it's not as sexy as like, you don't see much of this PBL, point badges to leaderboard. So like just now when we talk about the golden triangle, we talk about learning strategies. So at workplace learning, we want to deliver meaningful workplace learning. So how we define meaningful, which is, I think we talk about the content is relevant. So we look at, which is actually helping your employees to learn a skill that will help them in career progressions, get the job done faster, perform the task better, right? Okay, so, and also we're able to visualize the journey, the progress, okay? Yeah, so that's what we actually believe, that how we come up within the learning strategy, where we help people to actually map competency. So you ensure that it's a linkage from what you learn to how this is actually going to benefit you. And then you are seeing yourself is actually progressing, getting better. So a lot of time, there's no visibility when it comes to the journey. Okay, so with technology, right now, this is something that we can do. So why I say it's not so sexy is because in the whole conversation that actually it happens, client asks like, so where are those points and badges and leaderboards show up? So then we look at it, it's like, okay, so it will show up anyway, but probably it will not be the core. It will not be the most important part, right? Yeah. So this is what we look at actually, because you were to deliver something which is sustainable, you look at intrinsic motivations. What will motivates you besides actually just giving you a reward or giving you points from time to time? But it's really about letting you know that you get better every day, on something that matters, right? To your career or to your work or to your life as a person.
All right, thanks, Jaxton. Lovelynne, I mean, some marketing campaigns can be long and protracted. I mean, how do you sustain engagement in your part of the world?
It's interesting listening to the points Jaxton bring up. I think for me, it's also very relatable. Engagement is really like how you live your life, right? So you really got to keep it going consistently and constantly. And you ask me, how do I do it in long, prolonged campaigns? I think for me, it's really the excitement or the possibility of just engaging with an end user and just seeing the results. That to me keeps me going. But of course, having said that, I think gamification is a great way to really, spice things up, keep things going, make things interesting, engaging, motivating. So engagement also comes in many forms. Personally, looking at so much data, right? It's no longer likes or comments. It's also when they think about something or they talk about it later or they relate to it. So engagement to me is really when people are really touched by the content, or even if they play a game, or even if they do a quiz, or even if they are motivated to gain some badges or points. I think that to me itself is already engagement, the whole concept of the interest. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I guess looking at it from an associated point of view, let's talk about advocates. People use that term, right? We want advocates. Not sure if everyone understands what's required of an advocate, or much less how to garner advocates and keeping them particularly in this age of very fickle, transitory age. So what are your thoughts on this whole idea of advocates, and how do we create them, or how do we identify them and bring them on board?
So maybe I share from an educator point of view, right?
Okay.
So I mean, of course, that we run gamification practitioner workshops, right? So I think those people actually, they really buy in, like, yes, gamification is the way to go. We want to learn how actually we can make use of this methodology, right? So I think it is important to actually educate them. Okay, so we run the workshops on a quarterly basis. I think more important is to get them to really work on their projects, right? So to experience it, and then they receive feedback, right? And they can continue to sustain, the way that how that they believe of this methodology. So in the workshop, definitely we will introduce the concept, but the more important part is to get them to build the first gamification project using Gamatize, right? So we've been promoting Gamatize, and we have some success story where people continue to build on their project, and they go back and they implemented the projects to try with some of their colleagues, and eventually they launch a project with subscriptions. So I think that's a way that how they see gamifications turn into the real, in the work environment, and they receive feedbacks, and then they even gather the business case, they build business case, and they got the sponsors from the management to go on for bigger projects. So there are clients that actually been with us like a couple of years, and they've been actually doing this, the gamification projects. From the advocates become an expert. Yeah. So I think that's my take, that's what we can support them.
Okay. Lovelynne, your understanding of this idea of advocates?
Well, we're moving towards a world where the definition of commitment has changed drastically. And in the beginning of this panel, we actually talked about, how to keep people's attention span. I feel that the first thing we need to do to create advocates is to first acknowledge that the definitions of things like commitment has changed. The second thing I feel that is necessary to have advocates is to understand that they cannot stay in one state for prolonged periods of time. So they can shift from advocates to, being people that, you have to get to know all over again, engage, go through the entire funnel repeatedly. And that to me, when somebody has achieved true advocate status, is really when you are the only loyalty program that they use, or when you're the only airline that they will fly. But personally, I also agree with Jaxton that, gamification is a way that you can really help them understand and build a connection and a bond with you, the brand, the businesses. And that, to me, is how you can really create advocates. I mean, looking at their engagement with, campaigns and content will roughly tell you where they stand as well, and what needs to be done and how to improve. So yeah, pretty much that's what I think.
You mentioned that the definition of commitment has changed. Mine just kind of expanding on that. What has it changed to? What has it
okay, yeah, so like consumer preferences, right?
Yeah.
It's really like previously, let's say you drink this brand of milk, you're only going to drink it for the rest of your life. You probably will be very resistant to change. Today, you're really not loyal to any brand. It's really who's talking about it, what kind of benefits or what kind of perceived benefits that you think you may have from drinking it. Or even like car brands or even consumer products, right? So I think that's something that's really changed, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. People are no longer gonna say things like, I'm an Apple user, I will only use Apple product. That's very untrue. Unless you're born from a certain era, yeah, definitely, right? I mean, that tells our age lah. But I think today they're really not that way anymore. It's not going to be, oh, I can only wear shoes from Nike. No, I think they don't. It's really more about, oh, I saw this on TikTok and this is really cool. Even the commitment level towards influencers have evolved tremendously.
Right.
And you can see that from how when influencers make mistakes, half their followers will just cancel them. Like, sorry, I'm not going to stick by you. But 20
Right.
years ago, you can have all sorts of scandals and people are still like, the fan base is still strong and like, okay, I don't care, I just love this singer. So to me personally, I think we need to redefine commitment as well as what advocates truly mean today.
Right. I was just about to ask you that, right? Since if we have to redefine what commitment means, then we have to define redefine what advocates should be or are. And it's become to me a bit hazy right now. If the consumer isn't going to be loyal to one brand and they're going to be discerning, as in they will then perhaps jump from brand to brand or have multiple types of milk in their fridge, for example, can they still be advocates?
Definitely. I mean, so to me, I say we should change the definition of the commitment and the commitment period, because to me, I think they are an advocate the moment your milk ends up in their fridge. Because if you end up in their fridge, you have a high chance of ending up on their Instagram and you have a high chance of ending up on their network. So that to me is a very good funnel. If you don't even end up in their fridge,
right?
Sorry, but no.
Good point. It could be in the fridge because it's the cheapest brand at the point in time.
Or you're not going to drink it, you just want to gram it. So
right. Okay.
Either or.
Fair point. Jaxton, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, actually, to add on just now what I share, I think when there were more people that actually successfully built some projects, it influenced more people that actually will have a more better belief in the methodology. So I see through like this last 7-8 years, when I jump on this gamification journey. So I think there are more and more people that are more convinced that, oh, this is the way to go. Yeah.
Because it works. Yeah, so it kind of has to work first and foremost.
Yeah, business case. People need to see success story, even in a corporate environment, right? So we want to do a big bang project. We always advise the clients, let's do a small project. You build a business case, you understand your audience, so you get a better chance to success on the bigger project. Don't go on a bang, at the very beginning. Yeah.
Okay, great. Wonderful discussion so far. Perhaps we should kind of wrap up. One last question for the both of you. Your thoughts on the next 5 years?
Okay. Then maybe I'll go first.
Okay.
So I think that COVID accelerated digital transformation. So, and I also believe that will be very much different even next year onwards in the business landscape. But I think I also want to go on to the first one we talked about. People are crafting, I mean, they are craving for those the physical experience. But again, because there are many companies that experience how digital actually helps, or actually digital is more effective and efficient, more productive during the period of time. So they will probably come back and they want more. So I look at actually for the next 5 years, I think there'll be more technology adoptions that's happening, digitalizations, in terms of processes. Yeah. So when digital transformations, people, process, and technology, and people is always come first, and it's really important, right? So I think there's a place for a human-centered design kind of method, gamification, and all these things.
Thanks, Jaxton. Lovelynne?
When you asked that question, I smirked a little bit because I was going to say I can't think that long. 5 years is too long.
Okay, what's your horizon then?
No, I'm just kidding, because we were talking about commitment duration. But personally, I think in the next 5 years it will be really interesting. I think the way consumers and people react with technology will change tremendously. It will be kind of like a reliance versus resistance concept, I feel. And so I think in terms of how we can really increase advocates is really look at alternative mediums and strategies such as gamification, amplification, optimization, instead of just, you know, going through the churn of things and just, okay, this worked for 2020, so let's do this. But really examine what the audience wants and really emphasize on building quality relationships versus quantity. I think that to me should be how the next 5 years should be. Yeah.
All right. Great. I just really want to thank both of you for sharing your thoughts and your expertise and mostly your time on this topic. You know, at Gametize, we are invested in putting forward quality content and encouraging spirited intellectual discourse. More importantly, we want to advocate on behalf of sound, innovative, and people-centric solutions. So again, thanks to the both of you and to our subsequently viewers and readers. I hope you enjoy this piece as much as we've had producing it. So I just want to say good day and take care. And once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. Thanks, Guan. Thanks, Jaxton. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay.